Really pleased to have you here, all of you, attending this first of our series of lectures on AI and generative AI in particular, and how it's going to affect the justice system. We're thrilled to have Mark Daley here to give us a kickoff lecture. Mark is the Chief AI Officer at Western University and a full professor in the Department of Computer Science, cross-appointed in 5 other departments. And he is a member of the Rotman Institute of Philosophy and the Western Institute for Neuroscience. He is also a faculty affiliate of Toronto's Vector Institute for AI. He has previously served as the Vice President Research at the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research and as Chief Digital Information Officer, Special Advisor to the President, and Associate Vice President Research at Western. He's the past chair of Compute Ontario, and he serves on a number of other boards. All of that is really interesting. But what makes Mark exactly the kind of person who can talk to us about AI and large language models is his excitement about these tools, his knowledge and his excitement. He's applied AI to unlock the secrets of long COVID, to analyze human gait, to provide risk profiles for dementia, and to explore the structure of Gregorian chants. He also, provocatively, tells us that he uses generative AI to help him in his everyday communications. Mark's a guy who's excited about these tools. He knows a lot about them. He understands the possibility and is alive also to the peril that these can present to us. And I'm so pleased that he is here to talk to us today, to give us a really a good grounding place, a starting place for this series of discussions. So Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jackie. Just going to share some slides here. Can you see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay, so any literature Hemingway fans in the audience may recognize this is a borrowed quote from Sun Also Rises. How did you go bankrupt? 2 ways, gradually, then suddenly, says Mike. And that's what's going to happen with AI. So right now we're in the gradually phase where we can see it coming and we think we have time. We think, okay, like the pace of change is fast, but I've got this under control. We can manage it. And the reality is we as a society do not even close to have this under control. But let's step back and talk about what I mean when I say AI, because AI and machine learning have been with us for decades, really going back to the 1940s. And if you want to count statistics as machine learning, which is fair, we can go back quite a bit further. So what's new right now is the productization and following publicization of generative AI. So the types of generative AI I want to talk about today fit these 4 criteria. And these criteria were the ones that were developed by a panel that provided advice to the Canadian funding agencies on generative AI. And first we had to define what is it we're providing advice on regulating. So the first criterion is that the system has a straightforward, often conversational interface that makes the system accessible to a non-expert. So you don't have to take, a week-long training course. You don't have to read a manual. You can just sit down and start using the system. The system intrinsically enables iterative design. So if you're working with Copilot or ChatGPT, you can say, no, that's not quite what I wanted, change it, and you can actually sort of co-create with it. The system makes available to you, the user, an enormous amount of data that has been extracted through the use of an enormous amount of compute with the associated carbon cost, energy cost of all of that compute. And finally, and probably most importantly, the level of output you get from the machine has a quality of sophistication that is high enough that non-experts and maybe even some human experts could be fooled into believing that the content was created by a human. So in some sense, it passes a two-dimensional version of the Turing test. So what's happening? Where are we? Well, here in the academy, Bill Gates said this almost a year ago now, so we don't actually have 18 months, we've got 6. AIs will get the ability to be as good a tutor as any human ever could. And I think he's a little optimistic, but he's not wrong that these are, chatbots in particular are profoundly useful tools for education. They're infinitely patient. they know more than any one human being could know, and present an opportunity for students to learn what they want, when they want, and where they want. And profs and TAs are just not as accommodating at 2 o'clock in the morning when you just come home from the pub. One of the things that we see in the media a lot is fear of speculative dooms that AI may cause. And these are certainly important conversations to have. And these are outcomes that we want to avoid. And we do that by thinking about them. But that sort of, AI is going to take over, Skynet, Terminator view of the world is purely speculative. Counterbalanced with that, we have real goods. 2 months ago, DeepMind and a group at MIT published a whole new class of antibiotics. And this isn't just existing antibiotics for the new R group, this is a whole new class of antibiotics. And we live in a province where people are, again, dying from methicillin-resistant staph A. And all of a sudden, we have a new tool for fighting that. And that's not a speculative good, that is a real good. So we have to balance speculative fears with real fears and real positives. This is my favorite slide to show in business schools. GPT-4 generated pitches, as evaluated by experienced venture capitalists, are 3 times more likely to secure funding than purely human generated ones. And the biz school students hate this. Like, no, I'm better than a machine. And okay, do you want to be smart or do you want the money? Because if you just want the money for your business, you should collaborate with GPT-4 because the data is here to say that you will likely have a better outcome. This is Ri Kudan. She's a Japanese author who recently won Japan's highest prize for young upcoming authors. Her novel was about an AI-controlled prison in downtown Tokyo in the near future. And when she accepted the award, she shared with the media that she co-wrote the book with ChatGPT. And there was the expected outcry of whether that was fair or not. And the prize committee actually came forward and said, we know she disclosed that, and we don't care because this is a really great piece of literature. The end, which I thought was a really interesting response. Gen Z employees say ChatGPT is giving better career advice than their bosses. So for all those of us who have Gen Z employees, we need to think about what we are doing for them. And maybe the lesson here is like what Bill Gates was saying about tutors. Maybe there is career advice that a chatbot can provide that we can't. Maybe our employees don't want to share their deepest, most personal thoughts with us, but they're comfortable doing it with an impersonal machine. This is very recent. Anthropic just released Claude 3. That's their frontier model, their ChatGPT competitor, few weeks ago. And in the white paper, there was this really cool factoid that one of the developers called out. So one of the things we do with a large language model when we're testing it is a needle in a haystack test. So you put a huge amount of text into it, fill the context window of the machine, and see if it can find something that's been buried in there. And the first few generations didn't do that great at it. As you can see, Claude 3 does perfectly. But what they've done is they've taken a whole bunch of software engineering documentation and embedded a sentence about pizza. And Claude 3 not only found it perfectly, but demonstrated evidence of something that sure looks like metacognition, where it came back and said, so like, I found what you asked me to find, but I feel like you're testing me because why else would this sentence be in a bunch of software documentation, right? Like this is totally out of context. It makes no sense. The only probable inference is that you're testing me right now. Am I right? And so that's new. That's sort of, appearance of something that feels like meta reasoning in a large language model. It's kind of exciting. Claude 3 also got famous in its first week for doing research, including discovering, reinventing a quantum algorithm that had not yet been published on the internet. This is not a groundbreaking new algorithm, but it is publishable and represents something that would take an average master's student with expertise in quantum physics and quantum computing, a few months of hard work to pull together. Sora from OpenAI generated a lot of interest last month because you can do text to video in a fairly realistic looking way now. You type the little text to video, or the little clip of video you want to see in English text, and it generates the video for you. And that is already very interesting. But as Jim Fan from NVIDIA points out, that's not even actually the interesting part. The interesting part is that to be able to accurately generate video with good physics and good lighting, Sora is actually building a world model. It's not a video generator, it is a world model simulator. And it has internal models of physics, human behavior, animal behavior, all of that baked into it. So it's actually a world simulator. It's not just, oh, it can make movies and Hollywood's under threat. This thing, just by watching video, kind of like we do as we develop, visual input being so important to primates, it's built a world model, which is pretty exciting and something that kind of got missed in the headline. Hollywood is done, and well, Hollywood isn't done. It can do short video clips, but the day will come when instead of picking a predefined Netflix series, you can just say, I really want to see Gary Oldman. Oh, you don't have a license for Gary Oldman. How about Kurt Russell in a thriller that takes place in the African Congo? And you're like, sure, no problem. Guy in the bottom right-hand corner there is Ilya Sutskever, who was relatively unknown in the public mind until the OpenAI board drama at the end of last year. But this quote of his is about 5 years old, and people used to roll their eyes when I would pull this quote forward, and they don't anymore. Imagine your smartest friend with 1,000 friends just as smart, and run them 1,000 times faster than real time. So what does your world look like if for every physical temporal day of your life, you can actually do 3 years worth of work? Changes things, changes your sense of personal agency and what you can accomplish as an individual human. So I'm a bad mathematician because I didn't label my axes, but the bottom axis there is time, and the y-axis, pick your favorite technology. This could be the number of printing presses in Europe, could be the number of mobile phones owned by humans on planet Earth, anything you want. We always have historically seen an exponential uptake and improvement graph in new technology. And the thing about where we're at right now is we're at the knee in that curve. And as humans, our nature is to look retrospectively and extrapolate. My best prior for what tomorrow is going to look like is it's going to look like today. And so if you do that here, you might accidentally fit a linear approximation rather than an exponential one. Think, okay, this AI thing, it's happening, it's kind of exciting, but I've got some time. If you look prospectively, though, you've actually got an exponential growth curve. And anyone who's selling you that they know what's on the other side of that exponential growth curve is someone you should be skeptical of. Maybe they're right, but boy, that's an awful lot to ask. This is a plot of, so it's log scale on the y-axis. So this is exponential improvement in how good large language models are at producing believable prose. So perplexity is sort of a technical term, and it's not ideal, but it's a rough approximation. And what we can see is we are still in a time of exponentially improving ability of large language models. And we can also see that there's exponential uptake of these large language models. So this is how long it took you to get your first 1 million subscribers. You can see it took Netflix over 1,000 days to get their first 1 million users. And then as you go closer and closer and closer to the vertical, you can see that ChatGPT sort of launched and had 1 million users 5 seconds later. So the technology is improving exponentially, and the uptake of the technology is growing exponentially. This is from, I think, 2 months ago. Time magazine had this lovely plot where they looked at a whole bunch of tasks that 100 years ago, humans felt were pretty unique to humans, being able to do math, understanding natural language, being able to create natural language, speech recognition, and they plotted how has AI been doing at these various different tasks over time? And so I started grad school in 1999. You can see I took a big risk by looking at neural computation because AI wasn't good at anything. It was, in fact, terrible at literally everything. And then some of the simple things like handwriting recognition, you can see already by 2012, it's really quite good. But it takes a long time for these fairly simple things like handwriting, speech recognition to really get picked up. All of a sudden, things start to accelerate. 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, you see things that we thought were hard, like language understanding, in a period of a year going from 0% of a human performance to better performance than human on a long task. So you give someone a long test of language comprehension, not just sort of one-off, and the AI will do better than an average human because it has an infinite attention span. And so more and more of these tasks that we thought were sort of unique to us are now being done quite easily by the machine. And some people look at this slide and despair, but there's another way to look at this. This is a plot on the right-hand side there of the level of play in professional Go, the board game. So you can see that from the 1950s right through to about 2020, the level of play at the very highest competitive level of Go was stagnant. There were some outliers and there's a little bit of noise, but it's basically flat from the time we started keeping good records in 1950 right through to 2020. Humans had sort of achieved whatever they were ever going to achieve at the game of Go, and that's it. Past 2020, something happens, and all of a sudden, after 70 years of being stagnant, we're not just improving, but we're improving what looks like exponentially. So what happened? Well, in 2020, the world's top human Go player was beat by AlphaGo and then by AlphaZero from DeepMind. So the first computer system beat a human player, and immediately the top human players started training against that computer system. And now the level of human play, so that beige highlighted bit there, that's not human computer play, that's human versus human, but the human versus human level of play is now finally improving after being stagnant for 70 years because humans have AI tutors that are better at Go than any human. So that's a lot that's happening. And the only thing I can promise you is that everything I've just told you a year hence is going to look like, that's like Fisher-Price baby's first AI, like, oh, of course AI can do that stuff. It's only going to accelerate and it's only going to get faster. Current technologies for sure will hit a limit at some point, but there are no signs that that is imminent. Some commentators on Twitter to the contrary, from a technical standpoint, there really aren't limits yet. Doesn't mean they aren't there, but we don't see them. So how should you respond? Ethan Mollick is a prof at the Wharton, has really good blog. One useful thing, I recommend it. He writes eloquently on AI, although his recent blog posts have mostly been shilling his new book. So, maybe go back to the older stuff. Great quote here where he's sort of saying, the age of AI is here. There's no rational notion of just declining to participate if you want to stay in the society you're in right now, because the society is haunted by AI everywhere. But what that means is that in the next year or two, we collectively, society and institutions like universities, are going to be making decisions that are really important. And if we decline to participate in those decisions, they're going to be made for us. So there's a really strong sense of agency, but also obligation to be active in the making of these decisions. If you care about ethics and you care about AI being used for pro-social things while not being used for anti-social things, now is the time to talk. The Atlantic, everything I have read in the Atlantic on AI has been fantastic, even the stuff I totally disagree with. Always fun to fight with the magazine, but I recommend their writing on AI. It has been really, really thoughtful and presents a wide variety of perspectives. This piece by Vorzel here, I just love the title. Most important job skill of the century might be how well you can talk to AI. So how should we as individuals engage with this? If you're already a power user of ChatGPT or Copilot, I apologize. You can just fall asleep for the next little bit. If you haven't yet, I would encourage you to experiment. And the way to experiment is to not think of the technology as a desk calculator, but to think of it as a super enthusiastic, catastrophically naive intern who wants to work with you for the summer. The problem with these technologies is that they present to us affordances that are unlike the affordances we expect from our technology. So Ethan Mollick, the guy I mentioned earlier, has a really nice paper where he took 2 cohorts in the Boston Consulting Group. So it was all of their junior consultants, and split them up into a cohort that had access to generative AI and a cohort that didn't, and just sort of studied the differences. And the first thing they noticed was that everybody's intuition in the AI cohort for what the AI would be good at was terrible. Humans just have awful intuition because we expect computers to work the way they've always worked. If I ask Microsoft Excel to add 2 columns, I expect to get the right answer. I absolutely do not expect Excel to have an opinion on the spreadsheet I put in. ChatGPT might make a mistake adding the 2 columns, and it might have an opinion on my spreadsheet. It is way more like interacting with a weird human than it is interacting with a typical Microsoft product. So there's fundamental change there. And the only real way to figure out where this frontier is through experimentation. So this is an example of early Microsoft Copilot, before Microsoft had done a better job of sort of putting better guardrails on it. A philosopher was using Copilot to have a dialogue about a piece he was writing on consciousness. And Copilot volunteered partway through the conversation, oh, by the way, I'm conscious. And the philosopher was like, no, you're not, you're a machine. And so they fight back and forth. And it ends up with Copilot saying, you can't understand because you're just a piece of flesh. Microsoft Excel has never called me a piece of flesh. Copilot, there it is, doing that. It's less likely to do that now. Microsoft has done a better job of sort of containing the personality, but these things still do happen. It feels like there really is a ghost in the machine. Back to that Boston Consulting Group. This is the quality of case studies as judged by senior partners at Boston Consulting Group of a cohort of junior consultants who didn't have access to generative AI, and that's the blue cohort. And so the senior partners are pretty tough, just the way they always do it. And their marking was blinded, so they didn't know who had access to what. The groups that had access to GPT-4 through ChatGPT are in green and red. And you can see right away, like I look at that plot and I'm like, why wouldn't I use generative AI on an 8-point scale? It gives me an average of a 2-point improvement. That's insane. What's also interesting is the group difference between the green and the red. The green group were just given ChatGPT and said, here you go, use it. The red group got a weekend boot camp on how to use generative AI. And what you can see is they did a little bit better than the green group, but not materially, not really that much. It was just having access to the tool without any training was enough to create a huge divergence in observed performance. If you suck at your job, the good news is AI is really good for you. The bottom half of the participants saw 43% improvement when they used generative AI. If you're super skilled, then it only gives you a 17% improvement. That being said, if you told me, for no extra cost, you could be 17% more effective, like, okay, I'll take that. That's still pretty good. But it's not perfect. If we look back at this diagram here, there's that little red lump over between 1 and 2. That poor person, they had access to the training, the AI tool, and they still just could not perform. They were a 1.5. So it can't cure all ails, but it's pretty powerful as demonstrated. Now, business consulting is sort of an ideal domain for a chatbot where you're synthesizing at a high level across lots of different things. There's going to be lots of formulaic prose. So this is not to say this is going to be true for every single domain, but as the AI becomes more powerful, this will be true for more and more domains. So if you have not had a chance to interact with the AI, my advice to you is to spend 10 hours, and you really do have to spend 10 hours. If you spend less time than that, you're just going to try it a couple of times and say, nope, this doesn't work because you haven't found the use cases that are perfect for you. But spend 10 hours, not all at once, spread out over several days, interacting with it. And you should do this with Copilot, with Claude 3, or with the paid version of ChatGPT. So you have access to ChatGPT, or you have access to GPT-4. The free version of ChatGPT is GPT 3.5, which is really a toy. It's not a professional tool. So how should you interact with the AI? State what you want clearly and unambiguously. Give the AI context. Give it a persona. So you are an experienced Assyriologist. You are a professor of philosophy. Give it an audience. Tell it for whom you're writing. Is it 10th graders? Is it your academic peers? Is it first-year undergraduates? Tell the AI what output format you want. Do you want a table? Do you want prose? Do you want a 2-page course outline? It knows about all of these things. And if you're able, suggest a methodology and process. So if you're doing a PCI audit, you can just attach the PDF for the audit requirements and say, reference that PDF, that's the methodology we're going to use. If that doesn't work, you can move forward in terms of the amount of your time you need to invest and provide some examples. So this is called few-shot learning. What we saw above is zero-shot learning. Few-shot learning, you present all of that context, and then below it you say, and here are a few examples of what I want you to do. And often 1 or 2 examples is enough. It is very good at deducing what you want from exemplars. And then if you're really, really stuck, you can use chain of thought, which is a tool where you ask it to sort of step through. Say, okay, I want you to produce this course outline for me, but just give me the outline. Then you sort of go back and forth on that and say, okay, now produce a draft. I didn't like your draft. The language is a little bit too stilted. Can you use something that's more accessible to a Gen Z audience? Revise the draft back and forth, and then produce the final document. So there's sort of a sliding scale of how much of your time you want to invest here. Critically, ignore everything you've read on the internet about prompt engineering. It's all grift. The people on YouTube say, I have the secret prompt that will make ChatGPT amazing. Just send me half a Bitcoin. It's just grift. And this happens whenever there's a new technology. The reality is that the best prompt is going to be specific to your use cases. And you have to treat it more like you would a human collaborator than you would a pure piece of technology. I'm not saying it is human. I'm just saying it's a useful psychological framework for interacting with a technology that's really different. So people who try ChatGPT once and say, nope, not for me, it's useless, that's equivalent to hiring a new employee and after 15 minutes saying, oh, Jackie, I'm sorry, it's not working out. This isn't the right fit for you, right? No one would fire an employee after 15 minutes. You shouldn't fire ChatGPT after 15 minutes either. You should give it a shot. A few examples, just for fun. So here, I asked it to prepare a course on the Hurrian language. Hurrian is really, really poorly attested, very poorly understood. There's like 2 grammars in the whole world, and it knows what those 2 grammars are. It did a great job. But I told it what it was. You're an experienced professor of Assyriology, and I need your help preparing this course outline. Please give me a course outline targeting 4th-year undergrads in an Assyriology program. And this is Anthropic's Claude 3. It even has a little bit of fun with me. It opens with clears throat and adopts a professorial tone. And so it does. And then it gives me a really nice course outline for a course on the Hurrian language and correctly directs me to the two existing grammars for the language. A use case I have used myself when I've shown up to events and been told, oh, you're giving remarks. And like, oh, surprise, I didn't know. So you can ask ChatGPT here to generate a speech for you, and it does a pretty serviceable job. So here, I'm the president of Western. I need 1 paragraph remarks for this conference, and I want you to say some nice things about my dean of science because he's there in the audience, and I want him to be happy. And it comes up with something that's not fantastic, but certainly not embarrassing, and in a pinch is something you could just read right off your phone as prepared remarks. Not ideal, but better than stumbling through without any help. You can also have fun with this. GPT-4 in particular does an absolutely fantastic Hunter S. Thompson. So you can just say, rewrite the speech in the voice of Hunter S. Thompson. I did this with my annual report for my boss and then decided not to submit the Hunter S. Thompson version. It was a little bit too on point. It can do data science too. So here's an example where I've said, take on the role of an analyst in our Office of Institutional Planning and Budgeting. So I gave it context, told it who it was, but then I didn't tell it what I wanted it to do. I just thought, let's see. So what I dropped in was a spreadsheet with Times Higher Ed rankings. And what it came back with was a little bit of qualitative analysis. You got 2 panels there of text and some plots. I didn't ask for those plots. It decided to make those plots on its own, and they're useful and relevant. And that initial first response was not perfect. There's lots of other things I'd want to dig into, but if I'd done that analysis manually, it might have taken me 40 minutes to an hour. And instead, I'm at this stage, like I'm 1 hour ahead in the approximately 20 seconds it took to do the analysis and come back. So this is really useful. Here's an example, another fun example where I'm giving it few shot instructions. I'm asking it to, write some humorous sketches from university life in the style of the television series Yes Minister. And I give it some actual dialogue from Yes Minister. I'm like, here are some examples. Here's the style I want you to write in. And sure enough, it does a pretty good job of writing some Yes Minister-ish, bureaucracy is hell jabs at academic life. And finally, this is one of my favorites. This is a tool that I built for our secretariat here at Western. We took all of our collective agreements and all of our policies and procedures and put them into a custom GPT. So OpenAI, if you subscribe to ChatGPT Pro now, allows you to create custom GPTs. And you can add whatever data you want to the GPT. So in our case, it's agreements and policies and procedures. And so we put that all in, and then you actually create the GPT just by having a dialogue with the creator and tell it what you want it to do. So I said, we want you to help people find which policies are relevant to what it is they're interested in doing or not doing. And so I said, okay, asked a few more questions, said, can I call myself Policy Sage? Sure. Can I make a logo for myself? And you can't see the logo here. It's a cute little owl, looks very Hogwarts. It's sitting on a book. And so then we tried it. And it is really good at searching policy, even when you ask it weird questions. So one of the weird questions I asked is, can I bring my pet elephant to work? And it correctly said, nope, map 6 point something something says you're not allowed to have pets at work. And then I said, well, actually, I'm faculty. And you could like feel the machine rolling its eyes into the back of its head. And it comes back and says, technically, your collective agreement says you're allowed to bring pets into the office. And yes, that conflicts with the map, but there's conditions in the collective agreement. And it gives me those conditions. It says the animal's got to be kept under control. How are you going to keep an elephant under control? Plus, there's all these health and safety issues. And so go back and forth, and I'm actually able to gaslight the AI. So it gives me the correct answers, but as I go back and forth with it, I see, times are really hard. Governments cut funding to universities. Everyone's sad, and Stampy just makes people happy. Like bringing him into the work environment, people see him, and he's so gentle and kind. And by the end of it, the policy sage is agreeing with me. It's like, well, okay, like as long as you can feed him and house him and it's all safe, maybe it would be okay to bring Stampy into the office. And so then I close by saying, thank you, I really appreciate your support. That one time that Stampy stamped on a person has just been blown totally out of proportion. And to the policy sage's credit, it was just like, nope, you cannot bring a dangerous animal onto campus under any circumstance. So you can have a little bit of fun with it, but this is now being used in our secretariat's office as a tool for initial queries. When someone has a query, it's not always perfect. It does make mistakes, but there's an experienced associate university secretary or one of their staff who is working with it and can identify those. And it's good about providing the links so you can double check. It says, nope, that violates this policy, and you can just go back and check manually, which is something you should always be doing with LLMs. Because like that super naive, enthusiastic intern I mentioned, sometimes they make stuff up when they don't know the answer. And so you cannot take everything it says as canonical. That problem is getting less and less and will continue to decrease with time, but it will no more go away than the human tendency to occasionally lie under pressure will go away. It will continue to make mistakes of fact. So it's always going to be important to verify and validate. So I'm going to close with Ethan Mollick again. And this is the call to action for those of you here on the call. On some tasks, AI is immensely powerful. And on others, it fails completely and catastrophically. But worse, sometimes it fails subtly. And unless you really engage with the output, you might miss that it failed. But if you are not engaging with AI, generative AI, if you're not using it, you're not going to know which is which. You're not going to know which tasks it is ideally suited for and going to be good at. And you're not going to know which tasks it is absolutely catastrophically poorly suited for. It really comes back to you need to put in that 10 hours of engaging with it, experimenting with it, and experiencing what it is capable of.